Hi, I'm Nicole Coady. I'm with Finale Dessertery and Bakery Cafe, and today I'm here to make some butterscotch pudding for you. Has very few simple ingredients, so it's very quick to put together and fast to enjoy. We're going to start with brown sugar, some cornstarch, and some salt. This is a little bit different in that this pudding was kind of created for my nephew who's allergic to eggs. Most of my other puddings have eggs in them, and this one I made specifically for him, so because it's the saddest thing in the world to be at his birthday when he's like 5 years old and he can't eat cake. So I made him some pudding. So we're going to do a dry mix, and this makes it easy to blend it in without anything separating out. And I'm going to go in with my fingers. Cornstarch you usually add in to a mixture by mixing it in with some liquid, some cold liquid. Hot liquid's a big no-no when you're starting with cornstarch. So mixing it in with a cold liquid, but mixing it in with the dry will achieve the same result, and it kind of eliminates a step, so that's always a good thing. Whenever you scale out dark brown sugar or light brown sugar for that matter, typically I pack it in. I pack it into my measuring cup and get it really firm so I know that I have a consistent amount every single time. But when you pack it, you can end up with it wants to clump like a cake flour would. So this is a good time to eliminate all of those as well. We're going to begin heating our cream and our milk. At home, I use a gas stove, but I'm using an electric one today, so it's a little bit hotter. I'm starting out with it hot, and at home I would put all of this stuff into my pot and then put my pot on and start heating it up. So it's a little bit backwards, but it achieves our same results. So we're going to bring this to a boil. We're going to add a double fold Mexican vanilla. So this looks good. I'm going to add in our brown sugar. So this, as you can see, starts going really quick. And then it's starting to pop now. So we've got our boil, and I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit so I'm not wearing the butterscotch. This is a really good time to take your whip out and switch to a rubber spatula. Because you don't really, at this stage, like if you're making pastry cream or, for myself, a chocolate pudding, anything when I get this thick, it's about scraping off the bottom so I don't scorch the bottom and moving it as well. But I've always found with a whip that I can move it, but I'm not quite able to clean the bottom of the pan or the sides of the pan. So I typically get to this stage and I just want to keep the bottom clean. You want to let this boil for 3 minutes. Keep stirring it. Don't walk away from it because you will scorch the bottom then. The purpose of boiling for 3 minutes, it's like if you use flour, any kind of starch at all, you have to cook the starch out, or you haven't quite utilized the starch as much as you possibly can utilize the starch, but you also will end up with this strange little flavor. You'll end up with this wonderful butterscotch, and then at the end of the butterscotch you'll go, ooh, what is that? And that would be the starch. So it's really important to go those 3 minutes. So we are at perfect little stage now with our cream. We're going to take it off so we can add in our butter. And the reason that we're doing this, you can add, if you're making pastry cream, there's a ton of different ways to make it. But you can add your butter in at the beginning, you can add it in the middle, you can do all kinds of different stuff with it. I tend to just prefer putting in it at the end. It adds the kind of the flavor that I'm looking for, but it also emulsifies in instead of just kind of melting and disappearing. So for that, you want to have cold butter. It's good to just take it out, chop it off, prepare it, put it back in your cooler so that you're ready to go at the very end. And you want to stir as it melts so it really gets in there. You could, if you wanted to, if you didn't want to use a whip, you could use an emulsion blender. We've blended in. You get this wonderful thick pudding texture. And puddings, I treat puddings as pastry cream. And as it's cooling, you want to let it cool. But it will develop a skin as it cools. It gets this kind of dark brown, not really crusty, but really thick skin that you don't want to eat. And to avoid that, you want to get your plastic wrap, put it on, but you want it to touch the top of the pudding. So you just make sure you have a piece that's large enough. Lift it up, drop it in, and tap it down. The other thing that you can do, this is like a large container. So if I wanted to serve like a large quantity of people, I'd cover the whole thing with whipped cream and go crazy and nuts with this after I let it cool. The other thing that you can do is as soon as you take it off and blend in your butter, if you wanted to, you could portion it out into all of your little serving cups so that you're just ready to go and you refrigerate those and pull them out. And then you have your wonderful cocktail party and you bring out your butterscotch pudding and la la, here it is, and they go ooh and ah. So you're ready to go now with this. So we have our butterscotch pudding now. This is a couple of different versions. One, you can really, really dress it up, or you can have it kind of homemade feeling and very comfortable. In the restaurant, it's served in this really wonderful top, heavy, beautiful martini glass. At home, I put it in this wonderful little cup. And it's simple. To me, butterscotch pudding is simple, and it should be simple. So the only thing that I tend to top it with is heavy cream. You should use a soft whip so that you end up with this velvety texture. Heavy cream is really easy to over whip. You can over whip it and it gets kind of dry and grainy and doesn't have the right mouthfeel. But nice, wonderful, soft whip. You don't need a lot of sugar in it because you've got butterscotch pudding, and that's already sweet enough. And of course, you can go crazy and, pile it really, really massively high and all this other stuff. But I try to keep it simple so that I get the butterscotch pudding. And a little chocolate shaving. Little chocolate shaving. I don't know. I'll stick a few little chocolate shavings. And at finale, you got to finish with this little guy. So you get dark chocolate, wonderful balance, you get crunch from the chocolates, you get the flavor, and you get the great butterscotch pudding, which is what it's all about.